Inside Gaza, a devastation on a scale that feels impossible to measure. The Israeli military has leveled more than 300 homes in Gaza City, and over 100 more Palestinians are dead. It is part of a push to take full control of Gaza's largest city, and to remove every last resident. Reports now reveal that Israeli officials have even discussed the possibility of sending Palestinians from Gaza to South Sudan, a nation already scarred by war. And while those discussions take place far from the battlefield, the reality inside Gaza is cruelly simple. People are dying not just from bombs, but from hunger. 12 more Palestinians have starved to death in the last 2 days alone. That brings the total number of starvation deaths to 239. 106 of them are children. The healthcare system is collapsing. United Nations experts are accusing Israel of destroying hospitals and targeting health workers directly. Every strike, every cutoff of supplies pushes Gaza's medical network closer to complete ruin. Even food aid has become a killing ground. At least 37 people were killed on Wednesday while seeking help. 16 of them died at a single aid distribution point north of Rafah. And across the border in Egypt, relief convoys remain blocked. Truck after truck waits in the heat, the crossing open on the Egyptian side, but stopped cold by Israeli restrictions. Around the world, protests erupted against the targeting of journalists. In Gaza, 6 were killed in a single strike on a media tent outside Al-Shifa Hospital. 5 of them worked for the same news network. The attack has been called one of the deadliest assaults on press freedom in modern war. Inside Israel, far-right leaders are moving in the opposite direction, accelerating settlement expansion. More than 3,000 new homes have been approved for construction in the West Bank. The plan would slice Palestinian land into fragments too small to form a viable state. Even members of Israel's own government admit it. This is meant to erase the idea of a Palestinian state entirely. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu is publicly embracing the vision of a so-called Greater Israel, a phrase used to justify claiming not only the occupied territories but also parts of neighboring nations. The United Nations has also sent a warning that Israel may be added to a global blacklist for sexual abuse committed by armed forces. UN investigators say documented cases show patterns of sexual violence, forced nudity, and abuse against Palestinian detainees. In Alaska, a high-stakes meeting is approaching between the leaders of the United States and Russia. President Trump has warned of severe consequences if Vladimir Putin refuses a ceasefire deal in Ukraine. But Ukraine's leadership rejects any settlement that involves giving up territory in the Donbas region. The war remains at a deadlock, with millions of lives hanging in the balance. In Washington, D.C., Trump has declared a crime emergency and moved to take long-term federal control of the city's police force. Local leaders call it authoritarian overreach, especially as violent crime in the capital is at a 30-year low. The move is part of a broader strategy to expand federal authority into local law enforcement. A new investigation estimates that the Trump family has reaped more than $3 billion since 2017, much of it from cryptocurrency ventures tied to the presidency. Analysts describe the pace of these ventures as frantic, as though they feared missing any possible profit. Far from Washington, the United Nations Security Council has condemned a Sudanese paramilitary faction for declaring an independent state in territory it controls. The Council warns this will worsen Sudan's already dire humanitarian crisis, where sieges, famine, and disease are spreading rapidly. And in Peru, the president has signed a blanket amnesty for military and police personnel accused of human rights crimes during the country's internal conflict from 1980 to 2000. Human rights advocates call it a direct assault on decades of work toward justice, from the shattered hospitals of Gaza to the halls of power in Washington, from armed power grabs in Sudan to the quiet signing of amnesty laws in Peru. The story is not one of separate events. It is the same story, repeated in different places under different flags. A story of those who wield power, those who resist, and the unbearable cost carried by civilians caught in between. The Gaza Strip has suffered devastation on a scale that seems almost unimaginable. Entire neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble. Homes that once held families, memories, and everyday life now flattened by relentless airstrikes. The Israeli military has destroyed more than 300 homes in Gaza City, and over 100 more Palestinians have been killed. This campaign is not random. It is a systematic push to seize the city completely and forcibly remove every resident from the streets they have called home for generations. Behind the headlines, discussions are unfolding in secret, far from the rubble and fear. Reports reveal that Israeli officials have explored the possibility of relocating Palestinians from Gaza to South Sudan, a nation already fractured by decades of conflict and instability. For those trapped in Gaza, however, political negotiations are a distant reality. Their immediate battle is survival. Hunger grips the population with relentless force. In the past 2 days alone, 12 more Palestinians have died from starvation. That brings the official total to 239, including 106 children. Children who will never see another sunrise, never hear the laughter of their families, never experience the life that was stolen from them by the combination of siege, war, and deprivation. The healthcare system in Gaza is collapsing under the weight of these attacks. United Nations experts accuse Israel of systematically targeting hospitals and health workers, destroying medical infrastructure essential for life. Once overwhelmed but functional, Gaza's hospitals now teeter on the brink of complete collapse, operating without medicine, electricity, or hope of timely resupply. Even seeking food has become a deadly risk. On Wednesday, at least 37 people were killed while attempting to receive aid. 16 of them perished at a single distribution site north of Rafah. Across the border in Egypt, aid convoys wait under the scorching sun, loaded with food, water, and medicine, but unable to cross. The Egyptian side remains open, yet Israeli restrictions block the path to life-saving relief. Journalists, too, have been caught in the crossfire. 6 were killed in a single strike on a media tent outside Al-Shifa Hospital, 5 of them from the same network. International press freedom organizations describe this as one of the deadliest attacks on journalists in modern conflict, striking not only at reporters but at the very eyes and ears of the world, silencing those who would bear witness to Gaza's suffering. Meanwhile, inside Israel, far-right political leaders accelerate settlement expansion in the occupied West Bank. More than 3,000 new homes have been approved, slicing Palestinian land into fragments too small to sustain a state. Government officials acknowledge the purpose: to erase the concept of a Palestinian state entirely. Prime Minister Netanyahu openly references the vision of Greater Israel, promoting territorial expansion not only in occupied lands, but also into neighboring regions, redefining borders and altering the political landscape forever. The United Nations warns that Israel may be added to a global blacklist for documented patterns of sexual abuse committed by armed forces. Reports reveal forced nudity, sexual violence, and other abuses inflicted upon Palestinian detainees, crimes that represent serious violations of international humanitarian law. Gaza is only one front in a world descending further into instability. In Alaska, a high-stakes meeting between the United States and Russia is imminent. President Trump has warned Vladimir Putin of severe consequences if a ceasefire deal in Ukraine is not accepted. Ukraine's leadership, however, refuses any agreement that includes surrendering territory in the Donbas region. The war continues to exact a horrific toll, with millions of lives imperiled in a stalemate that shows no signs of resolution. Back in Washington, D.C., Trump has declared a citywide crime emergency, asserting federal control over the police force for the long term. Critics describe this unprecedented move as authoritarian, noting that violent crime in the city is at a 30-year low. This expansion of federal authority into local law enforcement is emblematic of a broader struggle over power and governance in the nation's capital. Meanwhile, investigations reveal that the Trump family has amassed over $3 billion since 2017, with the majority of wealth derived from cryptocurrency ventures linked to the presidency itself. Analysts describe the pace and urgency of these deals as frenetic, as if every opportunity must be seized immediately, leaving no room for hesitation. Far from North America, the United Nations Security Council has condemned a Sudanese paramilitary group for declaring an independent state in territory under its control. The Council warns that this move will intensify an already dire humanitarian crisis, worsening famine, spreading disease, and perpetuating a siege that affects millions of people. In South America, Peru's president has signed a sweeping amnesty, absolving military and police officers of all crimes committed during the country's internal conflict from 1980 to 2000. Human rights advocates denounce this action as a catastrophic reversal of justice, erasing decades of accountability and leaving victims and survivors without recourse. Subscribe now to World Conflict Watch. Like and share your thoughts in the comments below to stay ahead of history as it unfolds.